that kind of introduction, I can't be wrong, can I? Good to see all of you. Well, it's a good-looking crowd, and a good-looking building and everything. I'd like to ask all of you at this point, how old are you? How many of you are 15? How about 16? How about 17? Hey, man, that's great. Now, thinking about that, and think about me, when I first decided I was going to go and try to get in the military. I was only 16. 16, and I thought I was the smartest person in the world. How many of you think you're that way? I thought I was smart. I thought my parents were the dumbest people in the world. They didn't know what they were talking about. So I made a real special effort to go to the recruiter. I rode up on Harley Davidson, got out and walked in, and he was standing there watching me. And he said, "Could I help you?" And I said, "Yes, I want to join the Army." And he said, "How old are you?" I said, 21. And he said, "Well, where's your draft certificate?" I said, "I don't need one." He said, "You do need one if you go get in this man's Army." I said, "Well, I wasn't 21 on the 1st of July, which required you to register for the draft if you were 21. And he said, "Well, it was the 3rd of July." So I said, "Today is my birthday, and I've been waiting a long time for this chance to get here, to be 21 so I can go in the Army." They gave me 3 options: Alaska, Panama Canal, or the beautiful, gorgeous Philippine Islands, Islands of Paradise. So naturally at 16 I thought I was smart, I'd take that. So I did. I joined up, and then that very day I got my ticket. I left Camp Shelby, Mississippi, and on my way to the Philippine Islands. Under the terms of whichever I got in the Army, they didn't even put me through the boot camp at that time. They sent me to do the boot camp in the Philippine Islands, where it was hot, miserable, to do that kind of that type of training. Anyway, I went to the Philippines. I got there, and when I got there, the wing that I was supposed to go to, the Army Air Corps, was out on the news. And so I had to be sent to the Philippine Department to actually wait until my wing got back. So I was over there about a week, and it was 7 hours that was there, fell in that same category. So I went over there, and they had, we're right downtown Manila, and they had a beautiful program. The first day we got there, we got a pass to go downtown. We didn't have any money, but we went downtown. I thought, man, this is great. And here they were spending we were spending our time working half a day and frolicking around and having fun the other half. Now I thought I was smart because here I was making $4 a week, excuse me, out of my farm program with my dad, and clothes and room and board, but I was getting hand-me-down clothes. They all gave me brand new clothes. I thought, boy, this is great. I got to the Philippines, and it was 2 for 1. Now I'm getting, instead of $21 a month, I'm getting $42. I thought I was really making out. Anyway, after going through and having the time in the Philippines to enjoy the Philippines, the war came. We woke up one morning, it was a Sunday morning, in Hawaii, but we was on the other side of the international date line, and as a result, it was Monday morning for us, a Monday, and they had bombed Pearl Harbor. And 6 hours later, they bombed us. Now, most of you in reading and studying history, it says very little about the Philippines. But and I'm not trying to take anything away from Pearl Harbor, because that's the main thrust that took them to get the war started. But they killed 2,500 in Pearl Harbor, and they killed 6,000 in the Philippines. And we started getting, every day we were getting bombed. They tore up all our aircraft at the Nichols Field and Clark Field. The ships that was there were sunk at Cavite, Navy Station there, just like they did in Pearl Harbor. Even though they had the time to get them out, they didn't get them out. And here we were, that our Air Force had been reduced down to a few P-40s. And they expected to fight a battle. 10 days later, they started invading the Japanese invading the Philippines in small groups. And on the 19th and 20th, the 14th Army landed. That was one of the biggest and strongest armies. And it landed at Lingayen Bay. And our USAF headquarters sent to defend ourselves the Philippine Army, which was ill-trained and ill-equipped. I'm going to go as fast as I can here, but anyway, so they invaded on the 20th of December with the intention of taking the Philippines in 2 months and going on to Australia. Well, we fought them for 4 months and stopped them from going to Australia. And we did some things that was really not in the plans of defense. And MacArthur did get out on the 11th of November, and he took off to Australia. And we, on the 1st of February, and the latter part of January 22, they were going to have a beachhead at the points, what we call the Battle of the Points in history, and cut us in two. If they would have taken the Philippines. They would have taken us in 10 days. And they would have also captured General MacArthur. But that didn't happen. And I was involved on the Battle of the Points and helped save. And the Mako, can't go into the full details, but what we did and what I could develop a plan was to build chutes like a pit trough, V-shape. And we slid 30-pound fragmentation bombs down on the advancing force, and they killed most of them. And the rest of them came up the bluffs to 200 or so, and we went to hand-to-hand combat. But we denied them of a landing, and we denied them of the privileges of taking Bataan, and they said they were going to. Now, when the time came at the end, we were hungry, we were out of food, we was out of rice. There was a lot of rice that had been stopped from coming in there, and we made have a 1 can of salmon for 35 men to mix with the rice, not enough to even flavor it. But we were out of water, we were out of ammunition, we were out of quinine to treat malaria, and we were out of iodine to treat our water. And General King decided he would surrender. The Japanese had also received reinforcements. So Bataan fell on 9th of April, 1942. And that set up the Bataan Death March. So they actually said our surrender was go to a designated place and we'll put down the arms and go there and surrender. We didn't do that. We blew up the ammunition dumps on top of the hill that little baggy on. We tore up all the trucks. We burned up a little bit of gasoline we had left. And we just destroyed everything in the world we could destroy. We didn't want them to have anything. And they looked at the situation and said, march them, get them out of here. Because they had to take Corregidor. So I marched 6 days and 7 nights. No stopping. No water, no sleep, no nothing. If you fell down, you were shot or bayoneted. If you reached over and touched the partner or a buddy to help them, you were shot. If the Filipinos threw you a sugar cake over the fence or over from these little towns or through these little villages to you, if you reached down and picked one up, they'd kill you. There are many things that happened on the march. We lost 3,000 men out of the 15,000 Americans that was started the march. We don't know how many on the Filipino, but we lost 3,000, and then 2,500 more died at Camp O'Donnell from the results of the march. And these figures, I'm not going to quote them again, but at the end of the war, only 4,000 came home, and these are round figures out of the 15,000. That and the history or in the books might not reflect that, but the figures are about right. And that's what was the highest ratio of fatality of any other campaign. The Japanese was mad at us because we had delayed them and took away their timetable to go to Australia. And they treated us any way they informed us immediately that they would not sign the Geneva Conference, and as a result, they didn't have to treat us like anything at all. They could treat us any way they wanted to. And it was a disgrace to be captured in their books. Anybody that surrendered or was captured, it was a disgrace to their family and all. And they looked at us the same way. They, on Agoloma Point, if they hadn't been to Agoloma Point, they would we denied them that beachhead. They would have taken us early, and it would have been a little bit more tragic, I think, because they were not pregnant over there at that time. Well, I marched. I saw the trucks driving down the road. They would just plow right into a formation of men walking, prisoners of war walking. I saw them take bayonets on the end of their rifle and stick in the bodies of the truck, the stake bodies of the truck at night, and they go along and the truck driver would swerve and just cut them and kill some of them. I saw them buried alive. I saw them treat us worse than anything in the world. So at the end, I went to Camp O'Donnell, and the place was really a terrible place to be. The state of death was so bad, you couldn't even sleep at night. One spigot of water, and no toilet or place no facilities whatsoever. So I decided with a friend of mine to get out of there. And we volunteered for anything that came up. So I volunteered, and then I wrote a book, and in my book I made every place that I went a chapter in the book about what happened. I went on a Talbot Road detail. I thought, well, any place away from here was a good place. So the Talbot Road detail was one of the toughest and the hardest ever made. 306 men went out, and in 3.5 months, only 25 of us alive. When they brought us back to Manila and to build in prison, we were so dirty they wouldn't even let the corpsmen touch us. They put us in the middle of the street and hosed us down like animals, like we were just pigs or animals. But when we got cleaned up a little bit, then they gave us some medicine, and I was prepared, and I was sent to Japan. And I was sent to Japan in the latter part of October, and I spent 3 years in 4 slave labor camps in Japan. Now, with that little summary time, I'd like to remind you of a few things that happened. As first off, they captured us. We didn't know them. We couldn't talk to them. We did not know their language. So I had to do everything by sign language. And if you didn't understand them, they beat you. Okay, at the very beginning, when they bombed the first bombing raid, we went out on to a clearing and watched them bomb Manila, Nicholasville, and Cavite, and also Corregidor. And when we went out, our mess sergeant, Mahomes, decided, he said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to sit here and have a cup of coffee. And he was sitting at the table, just sitting there drinking a cup of coffee. And the minute the first bombs went down and started coming down and hitting Corregidor, we were in an area of the jungle where there were plenty of little gray monkeys. And a small monkey about this high come down out of the tree jumped up on the table right in front of him, screaming at him, just screaming. And as long as the bombs was falling and the noise, this monkey was screaming. When it stopped, he sit back and just looked at Mahoney. So by the time we came back up to him, Mahoney showed him to us. And we said, he said, well, he's not going to leave. He's going to stay here. So anyway, he did stay there. We didn't even radar because he could hear the Japanese plane before we could. Even before the sirens would go, he'd hear it. He got so good until he could hear the difference between an American P-40 and a Japanese plane. And he also, you dig your trenches, you do it in a beat. If the planes were coming from this way, he would beat you into the trench, and he would be on that side facing where the planes were coming from, just like we had to do. If it was coming the other direction, he'd be over there. Back then, you couldn't beat him to it. He'd get in that hole you would. And we had to leave this little rascal there when we watched. We were all of a sudden wondered why and how we got so attached to it. But anyway, we left it. We buried the flag with the idea of coming back, but nobody ever went back. And that flag, I guess, is still there. It was a sad day when we were surrendered. When we surrendered, the day seemed like the end of the world. We were forgotten. We were denied of any food. We were denied. And here we are on this march and so forth, and going to Camp O'Donnell, and all this has started. We realized that everything we would get to survive would come from the Japanese. So we had to start trying to work with it and incorporate. One thing I've got to say to you young people is this. In life, you hit something that might not be this bad. But every catastrophe is tough to overcome because young people seem to escalate it or make it worse than it is and have trouble dealing with it. But I was fortunate. I could adjust to anything pretty quick, very close. And I would advise you to think about it and any time that you have a trial and a tribulation, you try to adjust to it or work it out real quickly rather than carry it on and on and on and on and on and get rid of it. Now, when we got to Japan, we were unloading ships, working in foundries, working in factories, and just working everywhere that they could have us work. We had a little rice ball for lunch, about this big, and had a small cereal bowl of rice in the morning, and at night it was rounded up a little bit, and that's all we had except what we could steal. We became rogues. We could steal some rice once in a while, but if a Japanese had come to work and he had he had his lunchbox, he better find a good place to hide it or keep it on him, otherwise one of us put it in the water to get it. And we take a beating. But it was worth it to get some food. Had some rice and some bacon, had some pickles and stuff like that, maybe some fish, so forth. So it was good. So we would do a lot of things that way, and we developed a lot of sabotaging. We would steal everything we could steal to throw away at had any value. Didn't make no difference what it was. We tried to get it in the camp and throw it in our benjo. Our benjo was on the toilet. And we throw it in there. We thought we were going along pretty good. One day they decided the benjo was about full, they'd have to empty it, so they pulled in this guy that was doing that kind of work. And when he got in there, he found all this stuff in there. So when we came in that night, they made us stand there and pick out everything that we used that we threw in there. Well, here we all standing there looking at it, and you think anybody would claim anything? They couldn't prove anything. So they decided to beat all of us. We were beat, we were starved, our rice got worms in it, little white worms with the black eyes. We would cover that up, complain about it. Then we would start eating it, and we'd eat it without covering it up. And then one time we got some rice that didn't have the wormy rice and worms in it, and we complained about that too. And I'll tell you, we was in Japan, and all this time, it was very difficult for us to learn some of the languages the way they spoke. but we still had trouble with our interpreters. And I'll tell you one of the things that was happening. It was in the summertime, it was hot. And we got a bunch of fleas in our barracks. So the fleas were bothering us, and some of the guys were sleeping with no clothes on because it was real hot. So our English interpreter came up and called a meeting and said, I want to tell you that right now, I'm sick and tired of hearing about you making trouble with our fleas and sleeping with the bear. So we laughed and said, well, we'd like to find that bear. We could, but maybe we could kill him and eat him. But anyway, we would steal anything in the world we'd get our hands on and throw it away. We worked on roads, we worked in foundries, we worked in different lumber yards and things like that. And we worked from daylight to dark 6 days a week. 7 days a week. We got about Sunday. We never got a Sunday off. We just worked great. We worked all the time. And some of us would beat. If the Japanese had to pick out somebody to beat them up, then they picked somebody they knew. So it didn't pay you to make friends with the Japanese. I was bayoneted for my goose stepping, and in my right knee. I was walking down the streets of Osaka with my hands in my pocket. It was cold. It was 8 degrees. I had cut my hand during the day on work, and it wouldn't even bleed. It was so cold. And this Japanese guard turned me in when I got into the camp. He pointed me out, and they took me into the commander's office, and the interpreter was there, and a soldier had a gun in my back. And they said, he was walking down the streets of Osaka with hands in pockets. That's against regulation. And I said, well, I never heard anybody say anything about it against regulation. So the interpreter said, it is against regulation. So soldiers do not do that. I said, yeah, I know soldiers do not. But I'm not a soldier. I'm a prisoner of war. They don't make the difference. You're a soldier in the Philippine Army. The Japanese Army. You're a private. Same as a private. All the rules apply. I said, well, if you tell me the rules that I've got to go by, I'll try to do it. So this major was sitting over there at his desk, and he didn't like what I said. And he jumped up all of a sudden and said, take him outside. So he took me outside, and he comes out there, and same interpreter's there, and the soldier's back there with his rifle. And the major came out and pulled his saber out of his holster. It stuck it to my neck right here. And they wanted me to beg and cry and, oh boy, make a big deal out of it. They had all the other guys out there to see this execution. And I looked up, and I really didn't tell you till this day, have to say the only way I got the answer to what happened to me was from God. I didn't hear him or me, he didn't help me. I looked at that major and didn't take my eyes off of him, and I said, he can kill me, but he cannot kill my spirit. And my spirit's going to lodge in his body and haunt him until the day he dies. Now, he said that to the interpreter. And the interpreter said, say it again. And I said it again, and I said the same thing. And then I added, and I said, there are plenty of Americans coming, and when they get here, if any Japanese has killed another American with an unjust cause, his spirit's going to be lodged in his body and harmed until he dies. So he backed off, he frowned and backed off and put me in solitary confinement. He put me in a hole in the ground, 5 by 5 by 5, and the latch, the lid to that hole was even with the ground, so it was solid darkness. 7 days and 7 nights with a little bit of water in a bottle and one rice ball. I think he thought that would kill me, but it didn't. And when they lifted that opening up, when I was in there, my body I was so undernourished and so forth, and it affected me so that I didn't even know who my siblings were. I didn't know where I came from. And I was even trying to remember what was my name. I couldn't remember anything hardly. And he opened the lid up, and it was a real bright sunny day, and I couldn't see. And I put my hands up on the side of the hole in the ground, the form they had there, and he stomped my hand with his boots. I pulled it back, and he reached and grabbed it and pulled me out on the ground. And at that point, he started kicking me, hit me back of the head with a rifle butt, knocked me unconscious. So he was kicking me and knocking me unconscious and everything. And I'm laying there trying to get in. He broke 3 ribs on the right side, 2 ribs on the left side. And I kept wiggling and trying to come to and get to the barracks. And finally did get close enough that a guy inside the barracks came and pulled me in and saved my life. Now, that's some of the horrors. We had some funny things too, things that we did. And we were in a graphite factory in Kobe. We were making electrocarbon sticks for one-man submarine. You know, every battery inside had a carbon stick inside of it. Some of these come out of the extruder. They are 12 inches in diameter and 8 feet long. And the inspector would mark the good ones and the bad ones. We found that marking. They had a good pile and a bad pile. The good pile was shipped away, and the bad pile was put and broken up and went recycled through. So the first month we cut them down, they were making about 300 of these. They came and told us that they had taken them in away from there and sent to the army. And we said, man, it's fooling us, we're going to get even with them. So we cut them down to about 100 the first month, the second month, another 100. And the 23rd of the third month, we didn't have 3 good ones, and they were beating us, and they were getting all kinds of things happening to us. And again, the good Lord intervened with us. There was a guy that never had to have an American, that never had to have an epileptic fit, and he had a fit. And they asked us, what's wrong with him? And we said it's it's a highly contagious tropical disease. And man, they jumped and said, and I put him in a different room and said, don't go close to him. Well, that night we had a little meeting and we said, well, this is our ticket out of here. So the next day we were going out and everybody that was good had to have an epileptic fit. So we practiced it that night. And the next day, just about every detail that went out of there to do the work, they had an epileptic fit, and they were bringing them over there, putting them in that room, and they wouldn't even get close to us. Make a long story short, the B-29s were coming in, and they were bombing and burning out the buildings, and these towers and so forth would get closer and closer. So in 10 days, they pulled us out of there and sent us to a town called Papillion-La. It was a little inland port. We were unloading ships. And guess what was coming in on those ships? Soybeans, rice, and dried fish. And man, we took that as the POW buffet. We had to eat it raw. It didn't make a difference. We did all kinds of things to hurt them. We had a guy we were trying to hurt in a gondola, and we did get it. We got him shoved up against the side of the gondola with a bunch of narrow-gauge railroad tracks, and they got him in the lower groin and punched a hole in him, and we pulled him out of there, and we said, oh, sue me, sin. That means I'm sorry. And we pulled him out of there, and they came over there, and they looked at him, and instead of doing what we would normally think, they would try to treat him somehow. They ordered an emergency vehicle. Guess what came? A three-wheel bicycle with a basket on it. And they loaded him with his head over this side like this was the basket, and his feet on that side. Well, the road was just a short way, and about as close as the back of this building. And the cross ties were sticking out like they're on a railroad track. So he takes off, and after the man was yelling at him, hurry, and takes off on that bicycle one of the wheels on the right side on the railroad track, the right side of the railroad track, and that guy's head was going up and down like that, and the guy was just speeding up, going faster and faster. That's just one of the things that happened that was sort of funny. We had a guy called Simple Simon. He was mean to us. And so one day, somebody, by accident, flipped his bill of his cap. He'd keep his cap up like that. He flipped that bill down, and his eyes crossed. And he's walking around like this. So we got him and took him away, and about a week later, he'd come back again. So we decided we'd try it and do it on purpose this time. So about an hour after he got there, we hit his bill of his cap, and he was like this. Going around again. We played all kinds of tricks on what we could. And I'd like to drop back down to Camp O'Donnell. I'd like to tell you something about what I'm going to tell you now. I had two sets of dog tags. I was put in the Philippine Army before the war, and they gave me a set of dog tags for the Philippine Army, and I had one for the American Army. So I was on burial detail. They were buried about 2,500 were buried, but about 250 at one time a day. So I took my dog tags and put it in this mass grave because they were leaving guys when they were killed out on the road or by the side of the road just to rot. And I didn't want to be missing in action. My thinking was that the conditions in which I left home, I would like to sort of make it as good as I could for my family in the event that I was killed. So I thought this would help. There would be some type of closure. I never dreamed they would send me to Japan. Well, here comes my father-in-law and takes the Philippines back, and they dig up that grave. And they they had already sent my family a message that I'm missing in action at first, and then 2.5 years later, they had never seen my name on a Red Cross list or anything, so I was missing in action. They listed me as missing in action or soon dead. So now the dog tags arrived, and they came and they said, your son is dead. And my daddy said, well, they wanted to settle the insurance. He said, well, if I settle the insurance, we settle the insurance, and he said, and he's still alive, what happens? I think he's still alive. And he said, well, you have to pay it back. He said, well, you can keep it, I don't want it. So everybody in my hometown thought I was dead. Well, after the end came, and I'm back in San Francisco, got into Lebanon General Hospital, they said you can call home and talk as long as you want to at government expense. So I called home, and my mother answered the phone. And I told her who it was. She said, who is this? I said, Mother. She said, who is this? And I said, this is Darling. That was my middle name. And the phone went dead. She fainted. So her sister was there visiting her, and she came to the phone, and she said, who is this? And I told her, my aunt. And the phone went dead again. She fainted. So then my older sister came to the phone, and she asked who it was. And I told her, and she fainted. And there's 3 women on the floor. My daddy came in the room after a little bit and said, who is this? And I told him, and he said, well, I was the only one that didn't think you were dead. But it looked like I got 3 dead women here. And so he went and got a pitcher of water and poured it on them and said, yeah, they'll be all right now. They'll be pretty good in a little bit. Now, can you imagine you as 15, 16, 17 years of age going and getting yourself into the mess I got myself into? How many of you are thinking that, like I did, my family don't know what they're talking about, I know it all. You ever get that way? I bet you, if I asked you to raise your hand, if you did, nobody raised their hand. Okay? But that's some of the things I got myself into. One of the worst situations in World War II. And the worst thing is what that did to me. I came home, I got hatred in my heart. I got it in my heart so deep that anybody say anything about, you got to get rid of that hatred. I'd say, yeah. Well, I'm not getting rid of it, I'm proud of it. Everybody tells me I'm justified. So I'm hating. As long as I live, I'll be hating. And I'm still going around. My preacher said, you're going around the mountain. Terry says to me, he says, I'm going to buy a Toyota. I wouldn't drive in a Japanese car. I wouldn't sit in one. I wouldn't even have anything to do with it. I said, yeah. Well, where you going to park it? He said, what do you mean? I'm parking here. I said, you ain't parking here. So she bought a Saturn. And did you know something? I was really delighted that she bought the Saturn, but it was the sorriest piece of junk I ever had in my life. It caused me more trouble than anything else in the world. And you know something else? She's driving a Suzuki right now. I've completely forgiven her. My pastor told me I had to. I know that I'm in the school building here and I'm making a mistake. The pastor told me I had to forgive her. I said, I'm not about to. But it got to the point where I had to. I had nightmares for 30 years. I mean, severe nightmares. I couldn't keep a marriage going. They get scared and leave. And it was tough. I lost a couple of children, and through the divorce that I had, I went to the VA, and they did all they could do for me. But if you was going to the VA and going to see a psychiatrist in 1945, you was nuts, and they wanted to put you in some kind of insane asylum. So I had to work for myself, be in the business for myself, or somebody so I could keep it here. I couldn't even go home and spend the night with my family. And that bed, and afraid I would have a nightmare, and I know what I was going through. So Lord, behold, I had to get rid of it, and I did. And once I did, and forgave them, nightmares never came back. We were closely associated to a college in Alabama, and my wife was volunteered to do some cooking for the guys, for the kids there, from all over the country, or all over the world. And my book came out, and they were talking about my book, and there was a little Japanese girl there from Okinawa. So we were sort of concerned about what she thought, because she was a lovely little girl. So they had a deal where they were going home, and in the next couple of days, and they were going to thank the cooks and everybody that had anything to do with it, and cook on a meal, and we went. And she asked the director, which is Dr. Sandy, if she could have the little girl from Okinawa, if she could do something for me. And Dr. Sandy said yes. So she had all the people gathered around, had me sitting in the middle of the floor, and she went in the bathroom and came out with a pan of water. And she took my socks off and my shoes off and socks off and washed my feet and prayed and cried and asked for forgiveness for what her generation, her people did to me and other Americans. And that was a lot of dry in the house, and that was worth more than if I'd gotten an apology from the emperor himself. And my little lesson to you today is watch what you're doing. Be aware of where you are and who you associate with. And be careful about the way you do things. And like I said, don't harbor things. Get rid of it. Go and make the decision and get rid of it. And you may never, and I hope and pray that America, never another American ever go through what I went through. And so many other Americans. I went through so that we have the freedom that we have today. And I hope that our freedom will maintain forever. Because we are shining light to the rest of the world. They all want to come here, but some of them come in and they want to change us. So I'm proud any questions, if you would, I'll try to answer them. Any questions? Our department was surviving. They had the wisdom to keep on going. Fighting. When I was in that hole, I lost consciousness. I didn't even know where I was or what. I could easily just said, this is it, and moved on.
What was that inspiring you to keep going?
I think my faith and my desire to see that the Japanese, I thought I had to live long enough to see the Japanese get what I thought they deserved after they treated us like they did. Yeah, my feelings toward let me tell you, I'm a very, very humble person. It humbles me because I've been down there on the lowest level in the country. I've been down there as low as anybody can get. I was the scums of the earth as far as the Japanese are concerned. You walk down the streets of Japan, and the little boys and girls would come along, 8 and 9 years old, and spit on you and kick you and yell at you and throw rocks at you. So it humbled me. And that's one of the things that I think that could help me.
How did you get into
Well, the day-to-day problem day-to-day going on is whether or not you maybe got beat that day or not. But you had to look at your friends and think that you had to help them out. In other words, they're able to help you when you were in trouble. And I think the fellowship that I had with my fellow field veterans was invaluable. There's nothing else that ever has in my life affected me as much as that. Let me give you a little example of what happened. I had a friend that was named Clyde Summerall in Mississippi. He came to me and he said, I said, Clyde, what's the matter? He said, well, I come to tell you goodbye. I'm going to go out there and grab one of those guards. I'm going to try to take the rifle away from him and I'm going to kill him. Well, that was the instant death. And I talked, it took me 3 or 4 days to talk him out of doing it. And when he passed away, I went to the funeral in Mississippi. When I got there, his kids and grandkids met me and they said, look, we thank you. He told us you saved his life. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be in this world anymore. Wouldn't be here. And those kind of things. That's what kept me going. It's my friends that I wanted to see and for the help if I could. And I would do it again. I don't want to return to anything but that. At times I did give them hope. At times I would look talking over somebody else and they helped me like I helped them. Yeah, and because after 3 years and we didn't know anything except seeing 2 airplanes flying over, American airplanes, we were still prisoners of war. We had no hopes of coming home. And we were also told that if the Americans invaded their homeland, that they would kill all prisoners of war. And the only hope we had then is that all this terrible things would be over and we wouldn't have to face it anymore. I tell you, if you're going to go in the military, I think it's wonderful. It offers a wonderful opportunity. I would pick the one that studied all of them and pick the one that you like the Air Force or the Army. And if you go in there and do your job and obey, right now, today, I live in Mobile, Alabama, and the chances of getting killed in Mobile are greater than they are in Iraq. Think about it. So I don't have to worry about the war. Go in there and do my job. I think it's a good deal. You get your education and you're right for the future. I was 17. Yeah, I was 17 on the 1st of December, and we were surrendered on the 9th of April. I got a lot of medals. See the ribbon right here? Everyone on the journey. Got the Medal of Freedom here, the United States Senate. I was up for the Medal of Honor, but I did it at Point because I saved Britannia at that time. And I helped kill these 5,000 Japanese invaders. And it got political during the process. My witnesses were dead, and as a result, it required that you have 2 live witnesses. I didn't have them. And with what General Harold Thompson, the Chief of Staff at the time, helped me do, we did get it signed by the Secretary of the Army and sent it up. And when they sent it up, I was in the wrong party, and it got political, and it's still up there bouncing around. And it probably won't be answered until I'm gone. Well, I was running, I find myself running from the Japanese, jumping off of a big bluff into the water, trying to get in the boat, or trying to hide under a train, trying to hide in a building, and then and it's never could get the loose of the situation. And I would go to sleep, wake up, dreaming one nightmare, come back to bed, and get right back in the same mess I was in. It was a torment, day in, day out, and night. I even hated to go to bed. I got to the point where I had to reach the day before I even go to bed and go to sleep.
I think I can speak for everybody in this room when I say thank you for taking time out of your day to come up here. Tell us about your experiences in the war, and it can just help us all make it more real and